Okay, good afternoon class and welcome back to Science 10. Today we are looking at lesson 11 and we are moving into something specific. We were talking about ecosystems all week long and the role of species in ecosystems. We got moved into things that would cause endangerment for existence, things that cause species to become extinct. Today we're looking at one specific type of animal. We're going to learn about the value of wolves. Wolves, as most people would think about, are scary animals. People that are things that we don't see too often in cities. Usually if we're in the woods or in the forest, we might see one. They're thought of being very dangerous animals. They're all over Canada. We have them up in the far north. We have them because we have a very large biome called a boreal forest, and that is a natural home, a habitat for wolves. Well, yes and no. We don't see them too often. A friend of mine does have a farm out in Big River Road, and he claims that there is wolves that come because his home is about off the highway, and they come out of the woods. Whenever he's out cutting his grass sometimes, he'll see them in the tall grass. So, yeah, some people say there are some around. So we're going to look at that to see if we can find, get a better understanding about why the numbers are declining, how it's affected. People think, well, if something is bothering you, you just go kill it, and then your problem is solved. But as we know, everything is connected. And if you increase the number of one particular species, it affects the other one, or if you take away the number, if you decline their number, it does affect other species as well. So we're going to look at that today. So here's an interesting little story. Someone's, you're reading this, and I'll just read it out to you. It says, as we sat around the campfire talking about our exciting day, hiking the wilderness trails, we were startled by the nearby howl of a wolf. We looked at each other with a feeling of, and what would most people put in there? What would be your thought if you were of dread, fear, yeah, could be dread or a feeling of fear, right? Most people wouldn't put happiness or joy because it's like the idea of a wolf is a dangerous animal, and if you hear the howl, it's kind of eerie. So yes, most people would have a feeling of dread or fear. So the next question is this: do we own wildlife? As humans, do we own them? And some people think that as humans, we're at the top of the food chain, that for whatever reason, some people could use religious reasons or moral reasons saying that we have the right to go and kill whatever we want. However, we have a responsibility. Don't forget the old Spider-Man movie, eh? Once you're given great power, you also have great responsibility. So we do have responsibility. We don't really own wildlife. Once an ecosystem has been damaged by killing an organism, should it be fixed by restoring the species that was removed? So that's the question. It is a debate that goes on and on. Now, everybody knows the wolf is a predator. Okay, as we read stories about it as we grow up, and we see movies about it, so this is not a alien type of idea. We're not surprised when people say a wolf is a predator. It's an animal that hunts other animals for its food. It shares a reputation with snakes as something that must be loathed and exterminated on sight because it is perceived dangerous to humans. No, but that's what a lot of people would think about. You're right, not all. The only real problem with wolves, as far as humans are concerned, is the threat they pose to domesticated animals. And that's really the problem. A lot of farmers, of course, have to protect their livestock, whether it's cattle or sheep or even chickens. And the wolves, of course, if they don't have a natural prey out there, or if their habitat is being destroyed, then they have to look elsewhere for their food. So they will come in and hunt domesticated animals. So that becomes a problem, especially in areas like the United States, where there is more and more people, more and more cities and towns growing, and less forest. So they're driving the animals further and further away from a natural habitat. And it happens in southern Canada too. The idea of a lone wolf is incorrect. Wolves do not live by themselves. They travel in packs. I have a story. I remember when I worked up in northern Saskatchewan in the wintertime, I had to go out away from our camp. It was a tent camp way out in the middle of nowhere. It was a flying camp. I went in by helicopter. And the people working for me for drilling, they were about a mile away. So during the late afternoon, I had to fly out the helicopter to do a survey. And the survey took so long that it got dark out. The helicopter couldn't come and pick me up. So I had to decide whether I was going to stay there all night, standing outside the drill, getting cold and hungry, or should I go back to camp? So I decided to walk back. And I had to walk back a trail that was winding through the woods, and it was a long trail. It wasn't a mile. It was more like 2 or 3 miles because it was winding so much. And when I was going through, it was wintertime, I happened to go across a little brook, and I went through the ice. And my boots, I went in the water right up to my knees, and my feet got wet. It was cold and uncomfortable. So I kept walking, and I had a feeling that something was behind me. And I would stop with my flashlight, and I would walk back because it was very dark. And to my surprise, I saw the tracks in the snow. There were wolves that were following me. I just realized that if I sat down and stayed there, then I was going to be probably a source of food for them. So I just kept walking. And when I got back to camp, I made it back within an hour. It was a big relief for me. The next morning when I got up, I went up in the helicopter, and about 100 feet behind our camp, this is where we put our garbage, there I saw 3 wolves laying down having a snooze not too far from the garbage. So they did stick around, and I'm glad there was a lot of garbage because they could eat that and not me. Anyway, the wolves live together in groups, and they hunt in packs. And here's something else. They keep the same mate for life. There's no such thing as a divorce in the wolves, okay? They're really good parents. They take care of their cubs until the cubs are grown, and then the cubs go out and hunt on their own. So they're really, really good parents. Wolf packs, they care for members of the pack, so they take care of the community. They take care of everybody that they live with. They care for their members. Anyone that are too old or sick to hunt, they go and do it for them. We could have learned a lot from that. So the idea of the lone wolf came because single wolves were spotted from time to time raiding flocks and herds of animals. People thought that there was only one wolf. That's why that story came. So what's the value of wolves? Well, before settlers came to the Western world, the wolf was not at risk because they were just, there were First Nation people living here, but there wasn't that many settlers here. And First Nation people hunted, and they hunted their deer, and they trapped their beavers and otters, but the wolves did their own thing. But during the bison hunt, this is when they start hunting buffalo, that's when the wolf became threatened. That's when the settlers started noticing the wolves. And even worse is when the ranchers came, when they start making ranches, raising cattle, that's when the wolf became endangered because the wolves then were spotted coming in close to the cattle. Remember the early days, the cows used to graze out with no fences in the big pastures, and they became, food sources for the wolves if they wanted to. By 1996, the wolf had been captured and been moved to Yellowstone. Now we all know that Yellowstone is a park in the United States, and the story is that there was so much killing of wolves down in that area that there were almost none left. So the people from Yellowstone asked for some wolves to be moved from Alberta, from Canada, down to the United States. So they did do that to help them out, okay, to see if they could repopulate the wolves in that area. Getting back to the First Nation people, they believed that the wolf was their brother. Okay? They recognized that animals should not be killed for selfish reasons. Animals they killed were for food, not just for sport. 7 things that the decline of the wolves affected. So now that all these wolves have been hunted, or a lot of them, and in some areas there's hardly any left, how does it affect the other things that are living there? Well, this is what happens. Once the wolves decrease, there's an increase of the next dominant predator, the coyote. The coyote's smaller, but when there's no wolves around, then it has the chance to be, because there's no competition now, it can go out and get the food. The number of smaller predators, like foxes and badgers and martens, they declined. They got smaller, the number of smaller ones. Scavenger species like magpies, these are like ravens, right? Vultures, they declined because they used to eat the remains. A wolf would kill an animal, eat what it wanted to, but then there was leftover stuff there. Well, these scavengers used to eat off of them. And if the wolves are not there, then there's no food for them. So it affected them. Grizzly bears are deprived of an easy source of food because the grizzly bears also scavenge wolf kills. So a lot of animals would eat after the wolf. The wolf was a great hunter, and it would provide food for other animals. And large herbivores, and you know what a herbivore is? A herbivore is an animal that eats grass, plants, and it's one of these animals is an elk. It's like a big deer. I think you all know what an elk is. Well, the elk used to multiply because they didn't have the wolf there to kill it anymore. And the elk got so big, so much, that the elk started to strip the hills of plants. There's so many elk that then they got overgrazed the areas. And when that happens, with no competition, and there's nothing to weed out the herds, because wolves were good, they would just kill the weak and the old in the herd. When they would run after these elk, the sick ones would get killed. Well, that would help stop the spread of disease. But if the wolf's not there, then the disease would spread through the elk. So that would affect the elk herds as well. No, they wouldn't. But they would kill the animals that would get sick and slow. Okay? And if you're old and you're injured. So only the strongest will survive. But what happens if the sick and the disease don't get killed, then it spreads and the healthy ones start getting sick. So we're going to stop it there because all we're focused on is the value of the wolves. I'm going to get you just to loose leaf answer these questions. 3 facts about the wolves. Remember, everybody thought they were just lone wolves. Well, there's other things. Remember, I talked about how great parents they are and how they take care of the sick and that. When did the wolf become endangered? Well, remember, there's 3 times that happened. Remember, there was just First Nation people at first. Then settlers came. Then there were ranchers. Okay, there's a particular group of people that led to the endangerment of wolves. How do First Nation people regard the wolf? What predator increased with the decline of the wolf? When the wolf started to decrease, which other animal started to increase? And what herbivore, what plant-eating animal increased because of the decline of the wolf? So there you have 5 simple, easy questions. Okay? So we're going to complete that and hand it in. We should be able to do that today, and then we'll start something new next lesson. We'll try and carry on with this, maybe look at more about the wolves, but in a different setting. All right, that's it for today.